Hello and welcome to my FNF animating tutorial. I'm going to be showing you how I animate and what steps to follow. Okay, so what first you want to do is have Adobe Animate or Flash or something. I prefer Adobe Animate because it has a couple more tools, but if you're ever drawing, use Flash because it has better line art. So, the first thing we're going to do is go up to New File up here in the top left. Then we're going to click it. And once we do, a little menu is going to pop up. It doesn't show on the recording, which is a little upsetting. But it's going to pull up a thing, and in the bottom right of the little pop out, it's going to say create. And you want to click that. And while I wait for that to load, what I usually pick is I usually do 1920 by 1080. And here we go. Here we have our canvas. So, first thing I like to do is make sure the FPS is set to 24. Never do like anything different than 24 for FNF animations, or honestly most. Okay, and then another thing I like to do is come here to Properties, Dock, and then click on the stage and click the little color, the white, and then I want to change it to a less, awful color to look at. So I usually pick this middle gray. And then from there, I always make sure I have my timeline, my tools, properties on the side here with color. Color isn't 100% needed. I usually pick it for like gradients and stuff. Library is very important, and assets doesn't really do anything for FNF stuff. So yeah. So the first thing we want to do is pick a tool. It doesn't really matter, but I'm gonna name this ref, and this is gonna be a reference image to use to animate, so you can line up all the pieces. So I'm gonna import this Witty sprite. That is gigantic. I'm gonna import this Witty sprite, and I'm gonna be animating that today. So when it comes to ref images, you go to library here, and you see this. You got bitmaps, which is what I usually almost always keep reference images as. And with this, I'm going to come down here to the timeline, and I'm going to click the lock so then I can't mess with it and move it while I'm working, unless I want to click it again, and then I can. And then to make it transparent, you hover over the little eye down here, the crossed out eye, and while you're holding down shift, you want to click the eye, and it turns it transparent. And so now it's really good for referencing. Alright, so what I'm gonna do is I like to follow these steps. So come down here to the timeline, right under the name, right next to this folder icon. I will click new layer, and now I have a second layer, obviously. And then I'll rename it to body, because that's what I'm going to do. So I'm going to go over to where I'm getting the pieces. I'm just getting these off of Discord. And so here, we're gonna try and line these up to their best ability. And once you do that, then you should be good with that. And then you want to right click it. You want to right click the body, the image, and then and you come down here and click trace bitmap. This just turns it into like an object inside of Animate, and so it's a lot easier to change, a lot easier to mess with. So once you have that open, it doesn't show up on stream, but you want to go to color threshold, and you might want to tweak that a couple of times because sometimes the colors won't show up when you trace it. It's like really weird. I don't know. What I usually have it is from 25 to 100, like that kind of range. And then I'm gonna do 50 for this one and try that out. And so what I have for minimum area is 8 pixels. Color threshold is normal. And curve fit I do very tight, so it's almost exactly the reference image. Or, well, no. So it's almost exactly the body part shape and accurate. Okay, so once you do that, you want to click OK. Let me look this over. Let me see if I'm missing any pieces. I am not. So I'm going to highlight the body again, and you'll see this like highlighted thing, this like weird checker pattern. You can pull it apart, but we don't really want to do that, so we can like move it around and stuff. So we click on body again. That just highlights all of it. You can just do that or something. I just click the layer because it's easier. And then once it's selected like this, you right click it, and at the very bottom there's convert to bitmap and convert to symbol. You want to click convert to symbol or F8, I guess. So once you do that, it'll bring up a little menu. I really wish more things would show up on recording. Once you convert it to symbol, you gotta change the name. I'm just gonna name this body. And then I click OK. For the type, I pick graphic, usually. Movie clip is also useful for like some parts. I don't usually use movie clip, but that's what Phantom Arcade uses, so yeah. Anyway, I pick graphic, and then I click OK. And now, in the library, up here, I have the body. It's now a piece that I can move. As you can see. And so, what I'm going to do is I'm going to click on it, and it highlights it, obviously. And then this little dot in the middle, you can click and drag it. This is the pivot point on where you want it to move. Like, for example, if I did this, it would move on that axis. But if I moved it down to the bottom here, in this bottom, like, selecting thing, I don't really know what they're called, but I like to put it right over that, because that's the very bottom of the image. And then, obviously this is the same, because it's still in the middle, but this is different, as you can tell. And that's what I like to use. I like to put it at the very bottom down here. And then I'm gonna slightly move it so it lines up, and if you want to slightly move something, you can use the arrow keys. And then if you want to move it a lot without dragging it, you can press shift and then the arrow keys. This moves it by, I think, 10 pixels every time. This moves it by 1. So, yeah, now that we have the body, I gotta fix that again. Now that we have the body, I like to hide it, usually, so that I can see the rest. So, you come down to the timeline, and then instead of shift clicking, you just click the covered eye, crossed out eye, and then it disappears. And now we're gonna move on to the next part. Let's go with the front arm. So we'll make a new layer, and I'm gonna call it arm 1, because I usually do the naming convention of the closer to the camera, the higher numbered, like, limb it'll be. And so here I import the arm. As you can see, it's very big. That's why we need to trace bitmaps. And then fit that in here and line it up with your arrow keys and mouse. My mouse decides it doesn't want to work. So that's very upsetting. I can't zoom in very well. Anyway, now that we have it, you can hide it and then unhide it to check how accurate it is to the reference image. And now that I have it perfect, I want to right click it again, click trace bitmap, color threshold 50, minimum area 8, color threshold normal, curve fit very tight, like before. I click OK, and then traces the bitmap, and then I click off, make sure it didn't remove anything. And then once it's highlighted like this again, you convert to symbol, arm 1, and then I've got it as a symbol. That is not what I meant to do. Got it as a symbol, so now I can move it. And like the body, we need to move this pivot point. So I'm gonna move it at the shoulder, so then it moves on the shoulder axis, like an actual arm would. So yeah, that's fun. And then I just move on to the next piece. I'll do the back arm. So arm 2. Put it behind the body. And then go back to where I'm getting my images. Copy image. Paste it. Line it up the best I can, because I can't see much of it. Trace bitmap. Check. Convert to symbol, arm 2. And then take the pivot point, line it up with the shoulder. And then boom. And then here's what it looks like all together so far. Got these all as separate pieces. Now I'm gonna do this little zipper tag. So I'm just gonna name that zipper. I'm gonna put it under the arm because I want that to go under it. And then I'm gonna grab it, import it, line it up, trace it, trace bitmap it. And then for things like this, for some reason, Animate, when doing trace bitmap, will have little things in the middle here of open things. Funnily enough, it didn't do this time, which is nice. But usually you'll have to come in here and then click and delete it. So I'm going to go to the zipper, convert to symbol again like before, zipper, and then I'm gonna move the pivot point to be right here. So then it kind of moves where it would move. Then let's make sure that's lined up better. That is not. There we go. I think that's good. Alright, and now we're on to the head. So I'm going to make another layer like always. Head. Copy. Paste. Bitmap trace. Check. Good. Convert. That is head with 2 Ds. Whoopsies. And then for heads, I always put the pivot point at the neck. So I would put it about here, because the necks go up and back instead of just straight up and then it all stops at the same point. And then once that's all good, I can come down here and unhide all these layers once you have everything imported. For things like hair and such, I always, like, import it and do the same thing, obviously. But when it gets to actually rigging it, what I do is the scalp, like, where it all, like, comes from is where I usually pivot point it. So, yeah, if I can find an example, I will do that. Make a separate layer for this just to show it off. I'm going to side this up a little bit. I'm not going to convert this into a symbol and all that jazz, because this is just showing. So I'm going to take the pivot point, and I'm going to put it right here. So that way, when you're, like, if you're ever swaying the hair, it, like, follows that instead of being in the middle of the image, which it would be about here if it was actually a symbol. And it just moves like this, which is really gross. So, yeah, that's how I typically do hair. I'm going to delete this image. And boom, now we have this. I come down here to the timeline and click the ref layer, and then I click delete because I don't need it anymore. And then I come over here. No, I don't. The next thing we're going to do is tell you about parenting. So, parenting is a thing I used to use, but I don't use it anymore because it always kind of looks weird anytime I use it. But what I will use it is if there's like an arm and a hand and they're separate like pieces, then I will usually parent those together. Faces to heads, not hair to heads. Hair should usually be separate so it can like flow on its own. But you can use parenting all you want. How parenting works is you come down here to the timeline, and there's a camera, there's the parenting, and then there's invoke layer depth. I don't know how to use layer depth. I never use it. Doesn't matter. But you click the one with the box, the 3 boxes that have lines connecting them, and then this is parenting down here at the timeline. And you can just put stuff with other stuff. I don't like I said, I don't do that anymore. But now if I move this, it all moves. My main issue is it would squish the rest of these. So that's why I never did that. That's why I stopped doing that. So I'm just gonna go back and unparent these. Oopsies. Though I could parent things and then right click the little icon, propagate, scale, and skew and flip is checked, and so that's why they all squish together. But if I turned it off and then parented like the head to the body, it wouldn't do that. It would stay like this. I think that just feels weird to do in general, so I just don't parent in general anymore, other than the examples I said earlier. So yeah, what we're going to do is first we need to turn all of these into a symbol so it's easier to move by just itself. So I'm going to come down here to the timeline. I'm going to click the bottom layer, and then I'm going to go to the top layer, press shift and click so it selects all of it. And then I'm going to right click any of the selected layers, convert layers to symbols, and then I'm just going to name this Witty Freestyle Idle, or just Witty Idle. I think that'll be easier for importing in-game. Witty Idle. Now that I have that, I'm going to do a tiny bit of organization. So, at the bottom of the library tab, there's a plus, a folder, properties, and delete. You could probably guess what each one does. I'm going to make a new folder by clicking on the little folder icon, and I'm going to name it Witty. Just simple. And then I'm going to create a second folder. I'm going to call that Idle. And then I'm going to name the last one Anims. Animations. It doesn't matter what you name these folders as long as you know what you're doing. And so what I'm going to do is all the separate body pieces, I'm going to click one, control click another one, and that just selects it, whatever. And then I'm going to take these and put them in the idle folder. And then the Witty Idle, I'm going to put in Anims folder. The reason I put them in Anim folder is because things like left, right, all the poses and stuff will be in this folder. So that's really easy to export as a sprite sheet, which I'll show you how to do later. And then for the bitmaps, I usually come in here, shift click, and then just delete all of them because we don't need them anymore. If you want to keep any of these things, go ahead. You don't have to do this type of organization. Anyway, I'm going to take these two folders, the idle and anims, and then put it into the Witty. So then I have these. And then boom. Easy. Simple. Now, I'm going to actually start the animating. So, now that I have Witty all separated, I'm going to go down here to the timeline. And how I do idles is I do 14. I do 14 frames. because that's usually what works. And then I come to frame 7, and I click the bottom, and I click the top, and then I come here once they're all selected like this. I come over here to the timeline tools, and I insert keyframe. Keyframes are, how you animate. Oh, I forgot to say this earlier. When you're at 14 and you highlight this, you come up here to the timeline tools and you click this one. That's a box with a little line at the side. This is just normal frames. That just brings it to the end. Anyway, now that we have this, 7 is where it's all going to pause before it does the bounce again. So we're going to come to frame 1. And we'll just squish the body a bit. Woody's not like the most energetic character, so I'm not going to make him move a lot. Or at least squish a lot. So I'm going to tweak that a tiny bit. I'm just using the built-in selecting things, these. So once you're satisfied with that, you can move this around and then look at it. This is your first frame. And so then you want to move the rest of the parts accordingly. So I'm going to do this, and I'm going to turn it this way. Maybe I'll move it down a tiny bit so that it has a little more movement. Maybe I'll bring it right a little bit. Though I may want to bring it more up if I'm going to move it right. So there, now the arm moves. And what I will do is, I probably should have done this earlier, but connecting the zipper, I should have parented it, probably. Anyway, but I'm going to drag this down so it lines up again. And the way FNF usually does physics is it, falls backwards, so I'm going to turn it a tiny bit. Or actually, I might turn it this way. I'll just have to see what I do. But yeah, you want to move that down. Maybe I'll turn this a little less so it's less intense. And then I got to do the head. So I'll do this, turn it, and then pull it down and right. Like this. And now, boom, you can already see some progress. Maybe I'll turn this again. Hey, look at that. Now he's moving. Now he's grooving. My mouse is busted, so I gotta use the stupid zoom feature up here. And so I'm going to do this. But I think that's what I'm going to settle on for the zipper. Alright. Now, we get into the, fun part. How FNF animations, and actually a good chunk of animations from what I've figured out, is I have anticipation frames. And so what we're going to do is on frame 3, we're going to do what we did on frame 7, so select either the top or bottom, shift click the bottom or top, depending on whichever one you started with, and then insert keyframe. Now, these two are different, and we can change the second set. But first, we're going to change a couple things on this first set. We're going to take the head, or whatever piece you want to start with, and then we're going to tilt it up to its normal, closer to the normal orientation at the, very end of this idle. And that is what we call an anticipation frame. But I'm going to first animate all of the body, because that is what everything follows. So, we're going to come down here to the timeline tools, and then ones I have are insert keyframe, insert blank keyframe, insert frame, remove frames, onion skin, or edit multiple frames, loop, step back one frame, play, and step forward one frame. What I'm going to do is I'm going to click onion skin, is this one right here. And if you ever need to change your timeline tools because you're missing something, you want to come over here to these 3 lines right above the mountain symbol. and you want to click it, and then timeline tools, it should bring up a little menu thing. You want to click customize timeline tools, and that's where you can like customize all that jazz. But yeah, now I'm going to animate the body. So I'm going to click the onion skin, the 2 circles, and then it should bring up this. You can move it, you can change this in the timeline to see how far you want to see. I'm just going to see until the next frame and the last frame. So do something like that. And then I'm going to come in here. And I'm going to look at this body. And then I'm going to move it. I'm going to squish it inwards. Because I squished it outwards before. Now I need to squish it inwards. So that it's not too much less than this. But not squished in more than the ending frame. So I'm actually going to tweak that a tiny bit. And now I've just made it the same. Sometimes you don't want to use onion skin if you just want to see it easily. I always use onion skin, but obviously you can turn it off at your will whenever you need. So now I'm going to do the next frame of the body by coming in here, clicking insert keyframe. And then I'm going to move it so it's only a little bit less, but still noticeably less height. And then we're gonna take a look at this, see how much room I have. Okay, so I don't have very much room to animate this. So what I'm actually going to do is stretch out the beginning frame a little bit so I have more like room to work with. So squish that in a little bit. And so I'm going to come up here and click the loop button next to step back 1 frame, and then it brings up this little thing up here. I'm going to drag this across the entire animation, and then click play. And now he bounces. Simple. For like heavy characters like Tank Man or anybody like Buff, I always, instead of at 7, I change it to 5 is where it ends, because that just gives them a slight bit less bounce to show like they're heavier or less energetic. I think Witty looks fine with it, so we're not going to worry about that too much. And so now we're going to make everything follow suit. So I'm going to come up here to the head. Oh, actually, I do need to do one thing with the head. Come over to the keyframe on frame 7. We're going to click and drag it 2 frames to the right so that it's at frame 9. This gives it a little bit of follow through, which is nice. And that'll look a lot better when we animate each of the frames. So I'm going to come in here and then move the head using my arrow keys because I'm too lazy to drag it. And then this beginning frame, even if it's tilted upwards to be an anticipation frame, it should always be still like lower or further into the motion, because that's the first one. That's what happens when like on beat it does this animation. And so it should be always like more to the right and down. It just needs to line up with the body mainly. And so I don't usually tilt this second set of frames, 3 and 4, because it's fine. But 5 and 6, I'm going to tilt upwards a little bit. Maybe not that much. I think that works. Then we're gonna move it up like this. And then finally, what I like to do sometimes is drag this back and then go back to 9. And then make a new keyframe so that it's a little bit closer. I'm gonna click my arrow keys a few times and lightly tilt it. The further you zoom in, the smaller increments of like tilting you can do and like sizing. So I'm gonna look at this. It's a little bit janky, so I'm gonna fix that. I'll fix that by turning this a tiny bit more. And that's just that. So I'm actually going to do this. I'm going to tilt this frame more. And then tilt this one more. Because what I usually do, if for the anticipation frames, excuse me, I almost always make them more tilted downwards than this third frame, but obviously still less tilted than this one. It's not like, that's not like a required thing you have to do all the time, every time, but yeah. I'm going to tweak this a tiny bit so it lines up better. Tilt this tiny bit more up. This should not be as down as it is because that's the follow-through piece. Zoom in a little bit, like I said. And tweak that tiny bit so it looks a little better. And boom, now we get the head movement. If you want to move it less, obviously you just can move it less. That's how I hand animate. And now, if I can hide these real quick, just so I can see the animated bits. The Foley ones, at least. So look, now he's grooving, now he's schmoovin'. So we're gonna do the arm next. Wait, unhide these. We're gonna do the arm. And what you want to do for the arm is make it follow the body like before. And then we want to tilt it back to be more like this, like the original. So we're going to tilt it backwards, maybe turn on your onion skin so you can see. I don't have it on all the time because it's kind of distracting for me. And boom, now you've got that arm. And then you want to tilt it back more, raise it a bit on the next frame. Like we made another one with the head. And then look at this, compare this to the next frame, and then move it a little bit more. Maybe I'll tweak the this one tad, move it up that way. And then I think I'll change this anticipation frame to be a little bit more. And now I've run into this problem with arms. The shoulders are really jank, and you'll see this a lot with like less quality animations. What you want to do is just make the shoulders line up a little bit better. Obviously you'll have your like down and forward movements and stuff, but you want to make sure that they like line up well. Like this is gross. We don't like this very often, the shoulder right here. So I'm gonna look at this and I'm thinking, okay, I can move that. And I'll move this frame a little bit more. But I gotta remember, it's still gotta be lower than the other one. And boom, now the arm's animated. And maybe I don't like that all too much. And I think I could do a little bit better, so I'm actually going to and boom. Arm is done mostly. Well, I'd say the arm is done. You obviously want to tweak everything. I'm not going to spend forever on this. So now we're going to do this back arm. This one we're going to have to hide some layers eventually to fix. So Oh, I actually never even turned this. So what I'm going to do down here is I'm going to delete 1 through 6 with remove frames, and then insert frames again. And then go to 7, insert a frame, move this down to match the body. And then I think I'll move this backwards to kind of like not match this arm as much, because that kind of looks weird when they match so much. So I'm gonna move this back and down and turn it. And I'm just gonna do what I did with the other arm. Make a new frame. Tilt this one back for anticipation frame. That's a little too harsh. And I think with how this is working, I'm gonna hide the body. that sounds bad. Zoom in a bit more. Fix that. Then we're gonna show the body again. Select this, move it up a tiny bit so that it looks better. Then we're gonna go make a new frame. Do this, move it up right with the arrow keys, and then we want to make sure it doesn't do this like it discussed with the other arm. So we're gonna move this down. Move this right a little bit more. Nope, no we're not. Alright, once you think that looks good, then you can change it, tweak stuff as, you know, I've told you already how to do stuff. Remove this, and give this a little bit less movement. We're gonna see how this looks. Alright, it's not bad. I'm gonna move this up a little more so the anticipation frame is a little more oomph. This is not really my cup of tea, so I'm actually gonna move this a little bit closer. I think that works. Obviously tweak it, like I said. Move this a bit. Never mind, I lied, that looks garbage. I'm gonna fix that. There we go. I had to finick that a lot, and now we've done everything except for the zipper. I'll do that real quick. Probably. Actually no, I'll show this part off. I'm actually going to do what I did with the head and make it fall through, so it has a little bit more to it. So we're gonna come here, do what we always do, bring it up, fall, anticipation frame. I need to zoom in a lot for this one. Small. If you ever need a good reference, you can always go to the Funkin' GitHub and get Darnell's sprites for his little hoodie things. Little hoodie ties. Oh, that is a lot different than I thought it was. Move this a bit. tweak this a bit. Make sure it looks nice, like everything else. And boom, just like that, I'm done with the animating part. Now, we're gonna go back to top left and click this back arrow, and then we're gonna be here. There's no animation right now, because we gotta do that. I like to go to 14, obviously, because that's how long the animation is, but I don't know why, but I always do 28, because if I ever add poses or anything, I like the idol playing twice before the poses. So I'm gonna do 28, and then he's really big, and this is the canvas, and so if you ever export it as like a GIF or something, you're never gonna be able to see him other than, you know, his knees and a tiny bit of his head. So what I'm gonna do is next to the parenting thing, I'm gonna click the camera. And that's gonna add a camera layer. I'm gonna drag this so he's smaller. Do that a little bit more. And then I click and drag, and that makes him move. And this is technically a camera tool. It just doesn't show up on the sidebar because I don't have it enabled. You can click these 3 dots to add different things. Oh wait, I lied. Never mind. The camera doesn't do that. But I'm gonna click back on selection tool, and boom. Now he fits in. Now he fits in here. Yeah, witty. Well, he's done now. He's done being animated. So what we're gonna do, I'm gonna save this. Witty. Now it's saved because I don't want to, you know, have to redo this. And if you ever like have a layer that is sized well enough, then you can come here and then click this little icon next to the hide one, and it kind of just disables the camera on that layer. So yeah, now that we're done animating him, normally you never export them with just the idle, but I'll show you how to export. So you come over here to anims and you right click these. Obviously there'd be more that you would like shift click and stuff, but you want to click right click it and then go down to the bottom and click generate sprite sheet. Then when you're in there, when you're in that thing, it brings up a menu, and oh, you can't see it on stream, that sucks. Okay, what you want to do is you want to change the name of the PNG at the bottom. If you once you have that open, yeah, you can see how many like what symbols you have in the sheet and stuff. And what I always do is you want auto size, and then like auto size, I think for this one I might size him down just in general because it's really big, as you saw before, and so that makes the sheet really big. And you want to, for the data format, you want to click Sparrow V2. Never pick anything else for FNF animations. Then you want to click Trim and Stack Frames. Click those, and then border padding is how like far they are from the border. Shape padding is how far from each other they are. If you want to zoom out, you hover over the sprite sheet and then Alt, and then zoom out. You basically just there from click export, and then you have your sheet. I'm not gonna do that right now, so I'm gonna click cancel. But if you're wondering why they will like cut into each other, there's a good reason for that. Is because you don't have enough shape padding. What I will always do is to make sure that the animations don't cut from each other. I will go into here, and then I will click new layer, make a new layer, and then get a color that does not match the character at all. And then I will do this. I will draw a box around them. Well, I'll draw these two lines, and then I'll click copy, and then, oopsies. I want to do this, and then to flip it, you can right-click it, arrange, or transform, whatever, if you want, but I just do Control-Shift-7, and I click that twice, so it's like this. And then you want to fit it around the character so it's not too extreme. It's especially helpful like for poses and stuff. But you want to do this like before you export, just so you can like this, and then you would go into like an image editor or something, and then like highlight these and get rid of them. I use Photo P. That is disgusting. Okay, I don't know why that was like that. I'm just gonna delete the layer. I'm gonna change this back to clear. And yeah, that's how I animate. If you ever want to bring in like boyfriend or something, you can download his FLA on the GitHub for Friday Night Funkin', and then just open up his FLA file, copy him in here. It's not that hard. Put him on a new layer. Simple. If I ever do that, I just make a folder called BF and throw all the random crap that Phantom Arcade has for him. I just throw it all in there. I don't bother to organize it because I'm not exporting it. And yeah, thank you for watching.